Okay, hi everyone. Today is January the 26th. And I was supposed to do an interview today, but it got canceled. I have other ones in the next 2 days, so I thought I can come and give you an update on a couple of things that are floating in my head. One that's specific to the talk that happened with Bart last week, and one that was I want to share from a video that I watched today with you. And I think they're both important going forward. And I think it's important to, I don't want to say be positive with this, but it's important to work to see where we are very, very clearly. Because in order to take the doorways that are going to be available, we have to be truly seeing really, really well. And I think a lot of people will be very well-meaning at this time, or they'll be believing they are moving in a good direction, but because they're not seeing really clearly, they're going to trap themselves without even recognizing they've been trapped. So that's a big part of this, is staying alert for all the tricks that can be played to catch you. So, yeah, I did another interview on Monday with Cambell as well, and that was on Spiral Up, so that will be that was, I guess, our 5th in the series, and this one again was outstanding. We really got into, again, these talks with Cambell. They take us about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we kind of click on why we're talking. And the last, again, 20 minutes of the video that'll come up in a few days was just terrific. I'm doing another set of interviews with Emily and Michael. We start tomorrow with a totally different format. So the things we were doing before are over, and I suggested a new format. They liked the new format, and we'll begin that tomorrow. I'll let you know how that plays out. Those will be up, I guess, in a week. And then I'm on again with Crow 777 on Friday, and we'll see how that goes. So, coming out of the Bart Marshall interview, which, again, if you have not seen this interview, please, you have to go over to Freevoice and you have to see the interview. It really is, now that I've had time to contemplate it over a week now, or almost a week, it could be the best, maybe one of the best spiritual interviews I've ever heard. Like, top 5 anyway, and not because of me, right? I'm just a facilitator in this conversation to bring out what I feel Bart wants to talk about. And Bart was extremely clear, extremely focused, and sharing in a really deep way. And one of the things he shared is that, and this is really important, this idea that we're actually moving into a completely new realm, a completely new place right now, that the old is gone. And that means we have to start learning how to shift. And I'm going to talk about one shift, about this idea of what Aquarius is, and this idea of what does it mean to go from Pisces to Aquarius, really, not what Wikipedia is trying to tell you, or your new age friend down the street looking into her crystals is telling you. We're going to try to look at this a little more focused. So first is a key reminder that the tribe you wanted to bring with you, those that you wanted to have as your group to go through this, usually probably your closest family and your friends, aren't your tribe. You've given it an attempt. You have tried to win them over. They think you're crazy. You have to let them go. Like, seriously, let them go. Gone. Then they may never ever come back. You have to be very understanding of this. But that doesn't mean you're alone. Your tribe is now just different people, and they may not be people you've ever met before the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. Potentially, the people you're meeting in the comment section here are technically your tribe, and at some point, we'll find ways to meet up. Bart and I are actually now in the contemplation process of what to do next together. Beyond just another interview, something a little bigger for all of you, something that actually you can be a part of and join in, and we're going to have to discuss that over the next few weeks of how we want to proceed. He's in the process of translating another book right now, so he's a little busy for a few more weeks, but then we will we're going to come up with something, I think, that is hopefully, again, try bringing together where you're going to start finding the people that you wished your family and friends were, but you're going to have, in a sense, new family and new friends going forward. So that's the first really important thing to catch, that it's one idea. As long as you're holding on to the past of who you think your friends are supposed to be, you're going to be just using up a lot of wasted energy. We've got to go forward to where we're headed, not back to where we were. Second really important part of all this is we've changed ages, right? Or we're just about to change, or whatever, right? This famous shift from Pisces to Aquarius. And there's things that I missed about it. Now, first, of course, everybody tries to say, this is the standard, okay, Pisces is about one thing, and then Aquarius is about something else, and in the midpoint, there's a giant amount of chaos and order, and then it all settles down, and always everything gets good. Well, that's not necessarily true. Just because you've changed an age doesn't mean it's going to be better. You can change an age and it can get worse. So we have to take that out of our thinking process. What we do know is that it's going to change. And the better we are going to fit in with the way things are going to be is to start becoming now that which is going to be here in 50, 100, 200 years. That in a sense, we are the ones who potentially are building the next 2,500 years of this processional age. That if we put together, and I'm saying this personally now, not giving you some sort of arrogant head by trying to say that I'm special in any way, but okay, I'm involved in sharing things openly and writing books and trying to be a part of sharing knowledge and information, and now I have to see there was a time for sharing things in the Piscean way and the Piscean age. And if you keep trying to do the Piscean way, which would be emotion, which is a water sign, so it's emotional. It's also about, if you look at sort of Toltec teachings, the West, which is the water sign, is also the place of death, particularly the place of no self, particularly the place of going into this realm of non-existence. This is all in the West. So you've got emotion, which is in some ways a block to the realization of no self, but it's also a moving point. So what have we had for, we'll pretend 2,000 years of what we think our history is anyway, the way it's been presented? It's been a very emotional-based history. We've all been based on emotional religions and emotional wars and emotional contacts and emotional interactions and emotional societies and emotional everything. Emotion has been the turn. And if you look at what you might call spiritual teachings have all had an emotional / faith-based tone to them. And I began thinking about a whole lot of things, like, why am I having trouble with my Qigong practice? Well, Qigong, at least in its flowing state, in its Tai Chi state, well, that's a water exercise. That would have been perfect for Pisces. When I was doing, I talk about the standing like a tree, standing rooted. Well, that's an earth practice. That standing like a tree Qigong that's got to go back all the way to the time of Taurus, when that probably was the right exercises to do. You could think of something like Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga, which I see more because of its type of movement, is a very fire-based. It creates a lot of heat. It's a fire-based. It's a fire-based practice. That would make sense that it should have been the main practice in Aries. So you can see that we're like moving up these practices, these spiritual practices that keep moving from processional age to processional age when they probably shouldn't. It's the wrong energy for the wrong time. And we are literally at the point where we have to look ahead and say, okay, the Piscean age is going. It's leaving. And we are here to figure that out. This is one of the gifts we've got. If we're smart enough to see this, and trust me, there's not many that will actually be smart enough to see this on the world. So those that can see this, that Pisces is leaving, therefore we have to stop living in Piscean ways. And we have to start moving to Aquarian ways. Now, what is that? And I talked a bit about this with Cambell because I happened to look up what is the age of Aquarius, and we were talking. And when you look at it on Wikipedia, it gives the stupidest responses of, Aquarius is about computers and electricity, and what? how can Aquarius be a part of something that hasn't supposedly existed in this reality ever? So you have to dig in much deeper, because Aquarius has such a strange, it's got the water bearer in it, right? It's got the person moving the water in the cups, yet it's an air sign. It's also a sign that's associated with freedom, and a sign associated with sort of higher ideals. But then you've got the water bear moving the water from cup to cup, which is a very dedicated practice. So if we think we were in a Piscean age of water, of emotion, now we're going east into the air sign. Now an air sign will be a mental sign. First of all, it's a mental sign. The air is mental. Now, not thought per se. We're not talking about thinking. We're talking about using the deeper mind for either examination, hardcore critical thinking examination, or for tapping into what you might call instantaneous knowing, right? Gnosis, through the universe. That in an air sign, your connection to Gnosis should be closer, because that's what it is. You could also say Gnosis is a divine spark, so you could also say Gnosis is a kind of fire. Not that you can't access Gnosis, like a water or earth sign, of course. It's just certain certain ages indicate certain energies will be more prevalent, or certain ideals will be more prevalent. So why not be on the bandwagon early? Why not join where things are heading and not trying to hold back to where things were? So, like I say, Bart's idea that literally he talked about it, we're building an ark almost for the upcoming realm. We have the chance to sort of somehow survive through this craziness. And if we come out the other side, and have come out the other side prepared for what that other side needs to look like, we become the ones who can lay down the foundation for the next 2,000 years. And again, I don't want to throw too much importance or specialness on this, but we do have to see that that's where we are, and we happen to be the ones that are here that have the possibility to create a very different foundation for what's going to come. So why don't we take that advantage? Right? Why don't we take that advantage of possibility? Maybe it doesn't work out, but maybe it does. So why waste our time? Why waste our time fighting about it? Some people say sometimes you're too pessimistic, you're too negative. And I could see how some people could say that, because sometimes the world, particularly the world of YouTube, can be too optimistic, too people that are just, it's all going to be wonderful. There'll be some savior, because the savior will come, right? That's a water idea. That's an emotional idea. Someone will save me. But once you move into an air realm, critical thinking will save you. Understanding will save you. So interestingly, all the things that would have been considered spiritual practice are not really spiritual practice anymore. Digging into things like the shape of the earth, or digging into things like the study of history, digging into things like science, digging into things like anything, and really looking for answers, that's part of the new age. Like the last 10 or 15 years of the great, and I call it that zeitgeist, right? Like my expositions book would have been ignored 10 or 15 years ago. I would have been seen just as a nutcase. It would have just been floating for a long time. Nobody would have bought it. Nobody would have read it. But it came out at the exact time as these things were changing, and I didn't recognize the change until Bart explained to me, and I began thinking about, right, this kind of work is Aquarian mental work, and if you're going to be have a complete awakening, of course, you have to have all four directions you have to complete that. You have to complete the north, south, the east, and the west, right? You have to complete earth, fire, water, and air. You have to have all four in your system, and a lot of very wise people out there generally have only one, maybe a few have two of these areas well known, and they're literally out to lunch on the other two. They can't even fathom that the things of the other two are part of the package. So for however great they present themselves, they're tremendously lacking in total knowing. But it does mean that one will always be more prevalent in your time. One should be the go-to focus, and the others come along with you. The other three directions come along with you. So as we move into an air age, we're moving into also breath work, right? Air is breath. So you have to start thinking, well, okay, there's Qigong. I've just been talking about Qigong, which is a breath exercise. But like I just said, Tai Chi, that's more water. The standing like a tree, that's earth. So if you're moving in, what's an air type of Qigong exercise, for example, which to me would be more connecting with some bird Qigong that I had seen and done years ago, which might be the exact perfect type thing to do now, because the birds are, of course, an air sign. In the water, think how much our focus had been like the last 50 years on the pollution in waters, the need to clean up the water, the need to focus on the fish, on restocking fish supplies, because that's our era. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden you start to notice big shifts and people start focusing on the quality of the air, what's in the air, the levels of we're dealing with the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide and these crazy things were going on now. And there's no surprise. That's going to be the focus of the future, because the focus of the future is not water anymore. It's air. And that's why we've been seeing, I think, these chemtrailing for so long. It's people that are the influencers know where we're headed, and they're trying to be 10 steps ahead of us into what's going on. So by the time we figure it out, it's too late to change too much. That's how they're trying to present this to us. But we have to start knowing where our focus has to start going a little bit more from the water and a bit more to the air, a bit more to breath, a bit more to everything there is to do with. So the lungs should become the number one element of our internal focus now. We want to strengthen lung energy, strengthen the lung chi as we head into the Aquarius. I mean, literally, I'm just at the beginning stages of this. I'm like 4 or 5 days of thinking about it. But I think this is relevant, that we have the opportunity now to start literally, I don't want to say building a religion, but literally building the things that will be right for humans, that 300 years in the future, these will be the right exercises, these will be the right focuses, these will be the more in tune, right? The more harmonically in tune focuses to use, rather than the ones that were in our past. So we're going to be moving into like the baptism of air. We've left the baptism of water. We left the baptism of fire before that. We left the baptism of earth, which would have probably been, the being buried in the earth, which would have been probably the baptism there. Maybe the sarcophagus boxes in the various pyramids are linked to one of these. They could also be linked to fire, because the pyramid is known as the fire in the middle, right? So you're dealing with timing, etc. But as everything shifts to a more air, and it's going to be, again, thought, communication, and we're talking communication not like this, communication through telekinetic ESP type things. And again, I think a lot of what's the craziness that's going on now is designed to hack into our systems to really stop our abilities to interact mentally with each other, where we don't need to pick up a phone, we don't need to be on the internet, we don't need to be in the same room with anybody. If I want to talk to a friend in Germany, I just mentally think of it, send the message to them, they get the message, they mentally send it back. I mean, this is Aquarian stuff. This is at least air sign stuff. And so I think a big focus for all of us is to recognize that and begin going forward into not trying to hold on to where we were. Let that go, because it needs to be let go. And instead, examine what's the new thing to focus on. Take some time. Use our interactions together as a group to start figuring out what's the direction to move on to. Now, something to keep in mind of where we are, and that was from a really good video today from Dave Cullen. He has Computing Forever now. kicked off this platform. It was over on BitChute, of course. And Dave was talking about what he's calling because so many people are getting excited by the changes that people are forcing on the world right now. And it looks really, really good. And okay, it is, where things are being slowed down. But the idea being, again, the influencers want to move 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Because the end result is they've moved a step forward. So if they move 2 steps beyond where they really want to be at a particular moment, wait for the pushback. The people push back, no, we can't have that, we can't have that. Well, but they stop at halfway. They just move it back halfway, like, okay, woof, boy, it could have been really bad there. It is bad. They've moved a step forward. They've done exactly what they wanted. And then they'll just wait a little bit, and then they'll take 2 steps forward again. They'll go a step beyond where they were. You'll see this craziness, this push, this we can't do this. Push it back 1, and now you're 2 steps. Now what you're fighting here will be in 3 or 4 months' time the thing that you'll be okay with. Because the thing they're trying to implement is so much greater. And then 2 steps forward once. So you have to watch that this is in the planning system of what's going on, that there'll be certain times of calculated retreat, but it's not retreat. It's just stepping back so that people don't recognize 1 step from where we were is gone. And then in a few months, another end result, another step from where we were is gone. And the point is we have to remove all steps, not just the worst ones. So I'm just leaving that out there because that has to be recognized. Don't cheer the victories too much yet until you really take a real glance at, well, what is the victory, actually? Slowing it down is not stopping it. Stopping the train means stopping the train in its tracks, removing it from the tracks. Actually, it's removing the train from the tracks so it can't ever move again. Not just taking it from 100 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour. That's actually, you're just lengthening the time, and you're just encouraging the monotony of the pain coming. So I'm just mentioning that too, because I want you to keep that in mind as you're watching all this stuff happen and watching the response, which again has a positive nature to it. It's just, but you've got to see the bigger picture here. How does that step into this air element? Step into the bird-like viewpoint now. Get out of the emotion. If you're going to react now with emotion on anything, you're in the wrong age. Emotion is gone. Right? The ones who have still sunk into this the deepest, the ones who believe this stuff the most, are doing so from emotion, generally the emotion of fear, or the emotion of not following the crowd. They're in from emotion. Though if you think those of us who are not a part of this, it's not really because of emotion, even though we get upset and we might be frustrated. We're choosing out because of what we've come to understand. It's an understanding. It's a type of critical thought. It's a type of examination we've taken on information and have said, the information tells me this stuff is wrong and I'm going to be following something completely different than the rest of the average population. That's our age. All of us who are rejecting this are actually, in a sense, touching the new age of Aquarius, not the old emotional age of Pisces. It's why you can't go to your friend or your sister and win them over with critical thought and attempted understanding when they're operating from an emotional-based place. In this respect, you're talking to a 5-year-old child who is emotion-based only, and you're not going to win them over with your wonderful mind. And you have to see that. You have to start seeing how can you move them out of emotion first, not I'm going to present all this information and save them. No. You have to somehow begin to see what's being operated on, which is an emotional-based creature from the wrong era. What are the ways to shake them out of that? You see what I mean? we're in a completely new place. And we have to, I think it's now why I couldn't figure out why I was going to write my book that I've talked about writing. It's like every time I tried to put it down, or I'll write this as a novel, I'll write this as a story, it's all like a Piscean kind of presentation, which is not right for the age we're headed. And that doesn't mean it should even be a book. Maybe things will have to be presented and laid out in a completely different format. That books are not the thing of the Aquarian age. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. But at least now I've got a guaranteed better viewpoint of what I'm going to examine and what I'm going to focus on and how I'm going to look going forward. So I do have a little bit of optimism about this because Bart's talk did help to show that part of my own block was just not seeing what change is happening. Then that doesn't mean the change will end up being good for us. The change can end up being really, really bad. You know, if everything goes to plan, the way the influencers are setting it up, this is not going to be a fun presessional age. But we can have, that doesn't mean that's going to be our outcome. It doesn't mean it's going to be mine or yours. We could have a different outcome from all of this, even if it all goes bad. And we have a chance, our chances of better outcomes will increase dramatically if we work to the energies of the age we're in / moving into, not the ages we've been to. And that includes our entire spiritual practice, the entire books we're reading, the entire things we're focusing on, the entire places we're going to get information from. It's like we have to put sort of everything down and start absolutely fresh, as if we've moved to a new city and we don't know where to eat, we don't know where to shop, we don't know where to go, we know nothing. We're starting absolutely fresh, and we have to take everything into full examination again. So, go see the Bart interview if you haven't seen it, freevoice.io, and watch it. It is outstanding, beyond outstanding, really. The Cambell video will be up maybe later this week, maybe like Monday, Tuesday on Spiral Up. That'll be ready to go. The interviews I'm doing in the next couple of days, those usually come up in a week, right? Crow usually has them up in a week, and same with Emily and Michael on their channels. They usually have them up in a week. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to see what kind of comments this brings from all of you. What is this touching in you? And what is this, how are you seeing what I've just presented as being possibly in the right direction, or are you feeling that something is incorrect? And be careful with it, because total feeling, that's the Piscean way. So again, can you potentially tap into what is the Aquarian way? The more you tap into everything Aquarian now, the more doors are going to open. They'll have to. We'll leave it there. I'll talk to you next week one way or another. See ya.